Hey love, are you expecting a little one in April or later? My Friends and Nurse is opening enrollment for the February BirthLink membership cohort, and we would love you on board. This isn't just another birth preparation program. It's a comprehensive journey designed to support you from pregnancy through early parenthood. Our BirthLink membership is month to month, when we're going to dive deep into everything you need to know. You'll work through our extensive BirthLink course and gain exclusive access to masterclasses led by top experts. We're talking pediatricians, lactation consultants, physical therapists, experienced doulas, and other nurses just like me who will equip you with knowledge and confidence. Spots are limited in our February cohort, so please don't wait. Visit myfriendsandnurse.com/February and secure your membership today. Your most informed and empowered birth experience starts here. Ho, 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 you guys. Welcome to the BirthLink podcast. Yeah, it's Christmas time and I am freaking loving it. We had Christmas a little early, so we did it on the 20th. Which is also my husband's 21st. 20th is my husband and I anniversary. And then, so we went out, and then the next day, 21st, we celebrated Christmas because my daughter's 4 and she doesn't know. So we want to make sure we got it in because as you are listening to this, I am probably just arriving in Mumbai. Okay, so I leave on the 21st. Or I left on the 21st, I should say. I'm pre-recording this. And then, which means I'll probably be landing. No, I leave on the 22nd and then I'll be landing, oh my gosh, 23rd. It's a 20-hour flight. And we do have a stop in London for a few hours. So 23 hours. So, yeah. Send me well wishes. I probably just arrived safely and, it's quite a time difference. So I will keep you posted. Join me on Instagram at myfriendsnurse.com. I'm definitely going to be sharing my stories and trip while I'm there. But for now, it's the 23rd or whenever you're listening to this, actually. And I just couldn't wait to have Jill on with me. And we just had a really great conversation. She's one of those that comes on and I'm like, well, what do you want to talk about? I didn't have any plans. I didn't have any questions. I think I told her later, I'm like, I think I asked you like 2 questions the whole time. But that's the kind of banter we had, and I love it. Because if you get someone that is passionate and so knowledgeable and so experienced, that is how it goes sometimes, especially if it's in my field. So I do have questions set ready to go when they're, from left field, but I don't know them. Like a lot of, like if I got a pediatrician or I got the hypnobirthing, I know of it. I know some basics, but now I get to talk to an expert. So I want questions ready to go. Jill, there's stuff about, I know a lot of doulas, so I do know the ins and outs of it, but I just wanted to know about her because honestly, in Los Angeles, she is one of the top doulas you can have. So if you are in the Los Angeles area, I highly recommend her, especially if you're looking for a hospital birth, someone that's no nonsense, that will give it to you straight, but it also just has such a caring, warm, supportive soul for you and your partner and your family. And you're going to hear more about what she does and how she got there. I mean, she's so sweet. She wrote 3 different kid books around the doula topic, which, I mean, that's just the sweetest. So look at my show notes. I'll have links for those as well. And then you can find her at Jill Magoffin. So it's JillMagoffin.com. And you can find her on Facebook and Instagram, all those places. And she's starting to pop off. I think she's giving the whole social media a go, and I think she's doing fantastic. I love her stories. I love to see her coming out of births, and it's just always so touching. So I'm just so happy that she joined us. Even Kaya joined us for this episode, and you'll hear a little of that. Not much I could do. They were home for the holidays, and I mean, next time I will manage that a little better. I really thought she would just stay with her dad, but they don't. Surprise, surprise. All right, let's get into it. Thank you, Jill, for joining us. Let's have this conversation. Welcome to the Birthling Podcast, presented by My Friend's a Nurse. I'm your host, Colette Colliker, a high-risk labor and delivery nurse right here in sunny California. I'm also an OB certified specialist, birth educator, lactation expert, and mother of 2 beautiful daughters. I am passionate about guiding you through the miraculous journey of pregnancy and childbirth, using evidence and history and asking the reason why. I have some incredible medical friends and colleagues, and we're all here to help you navigate this often overwhelming birthing hospital system in the United States. My goal is to gain trust in birth, improve this system, and provide some valuable insights. Let's make this journey a little less daunting and a lot more joyful. Let's get into it. Good morning, Jill. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Birthling Podcast. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I had a good Thanksgiving dinner with family. Yeah, we did 2 different ones. Have you ever done the traveling Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it's tomorrow. My second one is tomorrow with my baby daddy and his family.
The only thing I didn't do right was I didn't take some leftovers home with me because it's the first time I'm like waking up with no leftovers.
It's a rough feeling. As much as I feel like I never want to eat again after the meal, I wake up like, what? I didn't know the turkey and cranberry.
I know. So this is probably coming out more near Christmas time anyway, so they're beyond that. So I'm sure at this point, when the episode's airing, I'll be getting my stuffing.
So that's just a little tease, like, people, take home your leftovers.
Yeah.
Don't do what we did.
You're getting your tips right here in the start. So Jill, let's get into it. So I'm so glad that we finally got you on and we can start talking. I know you're one of the best reviewed, most well-reviewed in Los Angeles. I love you so much. I'm so glad I got to meet you, and you're so inspiring just in the birth world. And I just have to know, how did you get started? Can you give us your story? Like, how did you get started in the birth world and inspired you to be doing what you're doing?
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much. I love you too, and I love what you're doing. It takes a community, and I think you are a very welcome and inspiring new member of our community. Not even new anymore. I feel like time's flying, but thank you. Go figure. I had no idea what a doula was until about 9 years ago, but I was doing what a doula does, I think like 22 years ago or more. I just didn't know there was a role for it. I just kind of stepped in and like supported friends and family when they were pregnant, and I felt this strong calling to it. I even like was addicted to watching like all of the baby shows, like A Baby Story and like Birth Story, and like I would be working as a nanny when the kids took naps. I would be like just focusing everything I had into this episode and understanding every bit about it, not knowing that one day I would actually be doing this as my career. I tell the story a lot, and I just think back, I'm like, wow, it's such an amazing pivot into my future. I was at a birth for my best friend at Kaiser in Woodland Hills, and I was doing, what we do best, support. And the midwife that was there, she's like, oh, you're her doula. And I said, no, my name is Jill. And she's like, no, you're a doula. I'm like, what the F is a doula? And she's like, what you're doing? I'm like, no, I don't want to kill people. I can't do that. She's like, no, doulas don't kill people. They just support and hold space. I'm like, what? What is this? I was working in the corporate world, like complete opposite of this kind of lifestyle. And so my best friend gave birth. It was amazing. She apologized for flipping me off, because it was like one of those moments where like, no one could really say or do anything that was really going to do what she needed at that time. So I looked into doula training and I took it. And then I didn't do it for another year because I just couldn't financially. And then I had a friend call me that I met at that training that was pregnant with twins. And she was my first official client. And I quit my job during her birth. And I've never looked back. And I totally went against everyone's, theories, like, don't quit your job before you have something else lined up. Yeah, I didn't care. I was done. Here I am.
That's amazing. And now you just take it off. I love it. And it starts that way. I feel like a lot of us have this kind of weird calling to it. Whether you're a labor and delivery nurse, midwife, doula, anyone in this birth space feels a calling to it. I know I did. When you mentioned Birth Story, like I was probably 19 when I started watching that, and I was pregnant. And that was literally my birth education was a Birth Story.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a little bit of everything if you think about it. I wish it was still on so I can
I
watch them, but
know.
I haven't been able to find it.
Maybe on YouTube. I don't know.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you guys are listening, go watch the birth story. It's like the 90s.
I love like the narrator. Susie was in full labor, contracting every 20 minutes, lasting 20 seconds apart. I'm like, oh no, no, no.
I know. I had a whole different idea of what birth was because of that show. I'm like, oh, and they were always so happy at the end. And then when I finally gave birth and they put the baby on me, they put Jordan on me, she was like purple and white gunky stuff all over. And like, it was a little traumatic, the whole scene. So I was like, this is not the birth story I imagined.
Oh, he did me wrong. Why?
So tell me now. I know you have 3 children's books
Yeah.
written and published and for sale. You guys can find the links to those in the show notes. Can you tell me what got you into writing children's books?
Yeah,
Such a good
really.
idea.
Right. Thank you. I have 4. One is not published yet because I'm struggling with just finishing it. They're not easy to write or, illustrate or any of that. And I don't illustrate them. I get someone, but one very expensive hobby. So just be mindful that if anyone's out there wanting to write a book, it ain't cheap. I love being a doula so, so much. And I got really frustrated with people going, "Oh, what's a doula? You mean the person that's all crunchy and sits in the corner and like burns incense or a witch?" And I'm like, "What the heck?" There's just such a stereotype about doulas that's just not true. Of course, there's lovely people that are like that, and God bless them, right? But not everybody that wants a doula wants someone like that. So I really wanted to write children's books to kind of start from the very beginning of what a doula does and make it special. I also left every birth kind of like looking at the baby going, I don't know if they'll ever know how much I truly love them and how much their parents worked so hard for their birth. So I decided to write a love letter to the child from the doula and talk about all the hard work that was put into, having this baby and what a doula does to support the families. And I want it to be diverse and all different types of families. And so that was my first book. And it was titled You Are So Loved, is titled. And it's beautiful. I absolutely adore that book. And then I got the bug. I wanted to do more. And I'm like, wow, I go into these families' homes and they have a child, and the child is kind of like either doesn't know that they're going to have a baby brother or sister, or they're like, or they're excited. So I wanted a book that would gently kind of like introduce them to the idea of having a sibling. That one's not about doulas, but it's just kind of for families to read to their children about the idea of having another baby. And then my third book, I love it, but I would have done some things different. It's about this doula named Sunny, aka me. I didn't want to name her Jill because I just didn't want that out there. But it's me, and it's about supporting families through the IVF process because that's not talked about a lot. And it's kind of hush hush some places, like, oh, it's a beautiful thing and it's an option for so many people that just can't have babies another way. So I wrote a book about that and how doulas support families going through infertility treatments. And now I have decided to write a book about just becoming a doula in the eyes of a child. Like there's books on scientists, astronauts, lawyers. If you ask someone what they want to be as a child, you see these YouTube videos. They're either, I want to work at McDonald's, or I want to be a scientist, or I'm going to be the president. I want to hear, I want to be a doula. So that's the book I'm writing right now. It's in the illustration phase, and I am so, so excited for this book to come out and for every little child to read. And maybe, it's cool to be a doctor, it's cool to be a nurse, it's cool to be a scientist, but it's pretty cool to be a doula.
And just know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think most of us learn what a doula is in our adulthood, our adulthood for sure.
Yeah. Or they had a home birth and the kid knows because the doula was there, but what about all the hospital births? They're not there.
Right. They barely get to be present at the hospital even after.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It's
You're
addicting.
gonna have a whole series, I'm sure.
I know. And they're on Amazon, they're on Barnes and Noble, and I'm just so proud of them. And I give the first book to my clients after their baby is born. I think besides having my children and becoming a doula, it's one of the best things I've ever done.
Oh, that's amazing. And if it makes you feel better, a podcast is a pretty expensive hobby too.
everything's expensive these days, even like crocheting. I mean, but yeah, it's a labor of love for sure. Labor, get it?
I'll put some sound effects in there for you.
There you go.
All right, so let's get into it now that we know your backstory. I keep going away from the mic, but now that we know your backstory, your passion, your love just comes through for these babies, these parents, these families, and I have the same passion and feeling for them as well. And we want the best. So you're listening to this now. Let's help you out. Let's start building your team. Okay, Jill, you're going to work with me here because you're part of the team. I'm the nurse, you're a doula. Let's say our clients, we get them right at the beginning. They just found out they're pregnant and they want to find a midwife or obstetrician, or even just decide between both, right? Let's help them out on choosing the team around them, starting with their provider, because I just think it's so important that they choose the right provider as early on as possible. And they need to ask the right questions, like let's guide them. So you start, help me out. I just got pregnant and I first need to decide whether I want a midwife or a doctor.
Yep.
Help me out.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to say, and it's also the thing that I'm being the most hypocritical about, because I don't want you to do this later on in the pregnancy, but I do want you to do this in the very beginning, is get your ass on Facebook groups and start looking at previous posts, old posts. You could there's a search button at the top where you can put in OB or midwife or pregnancy and just look at all of the posts on anything related to a doctor, a midwife, or any scenario regarding pregnancy. There, you're going to find a lot of different opinions on midwives and OBs. Now, you can ask yourself, you're newly pregnant, who people recommend. Take that information with a grain of salt, but take the names down, get an idea of some of the comments they've made, and then interview. Interview. I would love to say right now, like, okay, well, a midwife is going to be hands-off and more at a birth center or a home birth, but we do have midwives in the hospital, and an OB is more of a surgical person, more, focused on Western medicine. Like, there's a whole bunch of differences there, right? And I will probably, you'll probably get that information, but at the end of the day, you should interview both to see who you are most comfortable with. And then along with that comfortability comes where they support, how they support. And then you can make a decision. Now, obviously, you might have seen many births or have friends that have had different kinds of births, and you might know already, no, hell no, I don't want a hospital birth, or hell no, I don't want a home birth, and that's totally fine. But have an open mind, and it's just really important that you go in and interview the provider first, and then go from there. But that is groundwork right there. It's just finding your provider.
Ground. So look into your insurance. Look into your finances. What is your budget? What are you willing to spend? Speak with, if you have a partner, they need to be involved in this. Okay, can we look at our insurance and what it would cost us if we needed to go outside of the insurance? That way you're prepared when you're interviewing them on what you're capable of, where you can go when it comes to, because some midwives, if you're doing a home birth, you may have to pay out of pocket, right? The insurance aren't going to cover it. So see who's in your network, look at the hospitals, because sometimes if you prefer one hospital or the other, so depending on maybe the C-section rate or the number of rooms they have, or just the reviews, same as Facebook groups. So you go in there, you search, maternity hospital delivering, put in the keywords, and then the hospitals, like for us, Los Robles would come up, CMH, Ventura, all our local hospitals will pop up, and then you can start looking at those reviews. And then from there, once you learn the hospital, then when you go speak to the different providers, which hospital they're associated with, which hospital they have privileges at. Same with the midwife. And I love that you said be open-minded, because so many times you'll see one provider because they're in your network and they go to this hospital and they were nice enough and that was it. And you don't even ask the right questions, nothing. Like, do some interviews, they'll consult with you and get the vibe, get there, who there as a person.
So I just was looking this up to make sure I have the right internet address, but there is a couple sites that you can go to actually see C-section rates, see different scores on the hospitals. One is called leapfroggroup.org.
Yep, I use that one.
Yeah, it's amazing because you can get a real quick idea of how they roll there. And then,
They even talk about doulas, if they accept doulas, or what their midwives, forceps rates, all those things.
yeah, so that's a good place to start and then, branch out. But one of the things I do want to preface is try not to overwhelm yourself. I mean, everything about pregnancy can be very overwhelming very quickly. You're going to get 5,001 opinions. And you got to take it with a grain of salt or stop them in their tracks, because after you ask for everything, that's probably when you should end it, because these people, your friends, family, loved ones, they mean well. However, it's going to overwhelm you. So take what they say with a grain of salt, do your own research, make your decision, and then move on to another part of the pregnancy, or you're going to be stuck in this cycle of anxiety and worry.
Yeah, and it's not, I would say even it's not that necessary to ask anyone's opinion. You can get all of this information just going to those websites, searching, Google search. They have plenty of Google reviews and Yelp reviews and Yahoo reviews. And then, you look at your insurance, what's available, and you have to just pay. I wrote down five different names. I call the office. When you call the office, are they answering your call right away? Are you on hold forever? Are they, like, start noting these things? They're important because it's just going to give you an idea later on what you're going to deal with. So
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? I guess for people that go to the doctor now, like the office can be annoying or helpful. And I can't tell you how important it is to have an office that is friendly and quick to respond, because like things like that when you're pregnant are super, super important, because sometimes you're going to have some things where you need answers quicker than not. And everyone's busy, but there's a way of handling things. So that office should be handling it the way that you feel comfortable with.
yeah.
Really important. And also, I mean, I would also, even with not asking opinions, like even looking at Google and Yelp and all that, like understand that usually the people that are writing reviews either love or hate. There's not a lot of in the middle. And those are really like, okay, well, some of the reviews I see for some of the doctors that I absolutely love that are negative, I'm like, okay, well, that's not evidence-based, why she's upset. And, so it just, you don't know why
Yeah.
they're doing those reviews. So you kind of really have to.
Take it with a grain of salt. But if you're seeing multiple things about the same thing with this person, like bad bedside manner, maybe there's too many providers out there for you to be like, oh well, maybe that's not true. Like, take it with a grain of salt. But if you're seeing this is a pattern, then maybe move on.
Absolutely.
And then then have a list. I always say once you go to the consult, be ready. Go with a notebook with questions ready to ask, and not just, and then know how to read between the lines of what they are saying. Like, look at their body language. Are they looking you in the eye? Are they asking you questions and follow-up questions? And it's really important.
It's how you feel. It's like, I hate to say this, but it's like dating. It's like,
Yeah,
you got to go on that speed date with a couple people to figure out who you vibe with. I mean, doulas, doctors, even hair stylists, it's like dating. You got to
it
be
is.
comfortable with them. You got to feel good. If you
Yeah.
don't, it's not the person.
So do you feel rushed? Do you feel like your answers were I'm sorry, do you feel like your questions were answered? Are they facing you? Do they include your partner, or is the partner allowed in the room? Like, those things are important right from the jump. And to go back to the office staff, like, I just remember that I had the doctor that I was seeing. I don't think he had the best, like, now looking back, this was before I became a labor nurse. I don't think he had the best reputation among the nurses. And I didn't know that. And this has already had been my doctor for 10 years. And then I went to clinicals, and he was actually the first doctor that walked in the room. And this was my first delivery as a nursing student. I'm like, hi. And it was him. And we had a good relationship as my doctor, right? But then I found out, like, the nurses did not like him because he was very, like, type A, like he wanted things his way and that's it. And he's kind of blunt with them. And looking back now, like, I would not want that kind of doctor for myself, but I didn't know any better. And you probably won't either unless you have a labor nurse friend. So if you do have a labor nurse friend, use her, like, ask her, but honestly, you may not know. What attracted me so much to that, it was his wife ran the front office, and she just made me feel like so cared for. I had a pregnancy loss, and she, like, I called and she like knew my name right when I answered, and she's like, "Dear, it's going to be okay. What can I do for you?" And it just made me feel so cared for. So
So
those kinds of things, the front desk is so important, how they receive you, because you don't know if it's going to be a loss, or, or you may need extra help during your pregnancy. Like, how are they treating you through it? Are you feeling respected? Are you feeling like a person? So those things are very important. You're going to be with them, for a year or so.
yep.
So choose
It's also
wisely.
not only the nurses that you can ask, because I mean obviously you'd have to have a friend like
Yeah, that's,
you,
yeah.
but also if you decide to interview doulas at the same time, I can promise you this, and forgive me, doulas, if you don't do this, but I would say the majority of doulas during an interview have no problem suggesting doctors. And honestly, like, that's gold right there, because we see it all, we hear it all, really. So pick the brains of doulas, and doulas aren't going to, you know, I mean, if you're interviewing a doula that's completely holistic and wants everything natural, then chances are you're going to get suggestions that go that way. But if you want some more Western medicine and you want epidural and things like that, like, you're going to want to talk to a doula that kind of supports that more so than the other. And so they're going to have different doctors, and maybe you'll find people that, I guess, suggest both. And that's the best of both worlds. So yeah.
I've talked to many doctors that do not support doulas at the bedside. Yeah, I do. And they say, well, and as a nurse educator, there's like, well, how are you going to make sure that the doulas don't go against what we're saying? And they have like an attitude about it. And just as a nurse, I hear what the doctors say at the nurses station about doulas, and those are the ones that you do not want to work with if they don't understand the importance of having a doula at the bedside, if that's what you choose. So I love that. Yeah, it's, if you can, while you're choosing a provider early on in your first trimester, start interviewing doulas too. Get that. That's no worries.
He's on emergency.
But I love that suggestion. Do it tandemly. If you want to jump into that, is it true you're going to pay the same price whether you get a doula in the first or the third trimester?
Absolutely. So why not go for it early on as possible? I know, there's some people that are scared to do that just because of the risk. It's higher to have chances of having a demise in early, pregnancy is more common. But I mean, a lot of doulas kind of are flexible around the schedule and signing a contract until after the first trimester. But getting a doula as soon as possible, it's just one fee, and we support you all through the pregnancy. It's a myth to say that, oh, if you hire someone at 8 weeks, you're not going to get their services until the last trimester. No, no, no. We're walking, talking Google. We are so much better than Google, and we have resources, and we've all created our villages, and it's so much better to hire doulas early on as possible. And if you don't, it's okay. Hire a doula whenever you think about hiring a doula, but the earlier, I think, is the better and more beneficial.
I love that. Yeah. And I always tell clients as well, prospective clients, if they want a labor coach like me, I do more virtual. So I don't go to the bedside with you, but I can work tandemly with a doula. So I'm from a more medical side. So I can guide you virtually every week to know what to discuss with your doctor. Then we can learn all about, the pathophysiological aspect of birth and what to do, how to take advantage of things you can do in the first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. And I work very tandemly with a doula who will support you physically too. She can actually prepare you. She can come to your house. She can go through your birth plan. I can go, I'll probably have more time to go into details with you about it and to create it with you. But then you can take that and you can work with your doula. And then you take all that plethora of information that you're gaining and you go to your doctor that you've chosen or your midwife. And now you both can start building that birth plan that's so evidence-based, right? Like, that's how you create a birth plan that really works. Kaya has entered the building.
Hello. Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving.
She said, good morning, happy Thanksgiving. I have my headphones on. She can't hear. All right. So yeah, I love that. Building. Okay. So we're building our team, doula. It's early on in your trimester. What kind of questions should we be asking when we're looking for a doula?
Oh, man, definitely get an idea of how you envision your birth to be, right? So that's really going to determine what kind of doula you want to hire. If you're envisioning a home birth or a birth center, hands off, or someone that's going to meditate with you and kind of work with you on the moon cycles and things like that, like then you're going to want to look at for doulas that are more holistic and natural. So with those type of doulas, you're going to ask questions like, what is your philosophy? What do you do at an average birth? And I say that there's no average birth, all births are different. But what do you do? What don't you do? How do you feel about certain things that you might be very strong about doing, feel very strongly about doing? You know, those are questions that you should ask. Like, it's really getting to know a doula. I always say to the people that I'm interviewing with, like, look, I like my credentials. I have a lot of experience, a lot of background, but at the end of the day, it does not matter. Because what matters is that you feel comfortable with that doula because you're going to be with them in the most intimate moments ever, ever. So ask questions just about what would make you feel comfortable picking that person as your doula. Number one is philosophy. Like it's super important, although I always answer when they ask me about my philosophies, like I don't have a philosophy. I really don't. I meet you where you're at. If you want this, great. I'm going to provide you with pros and cons if that's what you're looking for. And I'm going to support you 100% in whatever you decide to do. I don't care what kind of birth you have, as long as you know the pros and cons and you feel supported. That's all I care about. Do I specialize in home births? Not really. I specialize in hospital births. I suffer from severe anxiety. I have for decades. So I usually attract clients that have the same kind of things going on like anxiety, depression, prior losses, things like that. They want the comfort of a hospital. I say comfort lightly because we know it's not comfortable, but mentally, for some reason, a lot of people feel more comfortable in a hospital setting because they've gone through prior losses and they want to make sure everything's going to go okay. And while we know that there are, that is a false sense of security, that's okay. People feel very strongly about being in the hospital. So guess what? I love it. I go there, I support, and I do what I need to do. So when you're interviewing, you ask, what's your philosophy? What's your style of support? People ask me all the time, like, how many births do you have? And my thing is like, okay, I'll tell you I have over 200 and something births, but what does that matter? You can find someone brand new that is absolutely amazing. You can find someone that's done 800 births that's burned out and tired and the staff hates her because she's rude. It doesn't matter. It's who you're comfortable with. I also say, like, do you ask your landscapers how many, lawns they've mowed? No. You look at their experience. You look at what they've done. Like, oh, I've seen your work on your website and stuff like that. That's what's important. Not, how many, not the numbers. Now, unfortunately, I would say that it's also important to ask if they're certified or not. And I say that, and I say it with my eyes are rolling because I don't believe a doula needs to be certified. However, we are now getting to the stage, and I think it's a beautiful thing for people that need it, insurance coverage. There are insurance companies, including Medi-Cal, that are now covering doulas. Amen. Everyone should have access to a doula. But along with being covered, there are requirements for doulas to have, and that is certification. So that should be one of your questions. Are you certified? With whom? You have to call your insurance and see if they cover doulas, and if so, what certifying agencies do they accept? So that's a big one. Also, how many births do you take in a month? If you take 5 to 15,000 births a month, chances are there's a higher risk of you having a backup. Now, I absolutely think backups should be normalized. We all have lives, we have families, and we have other births. We have to make a living, right? But our backups need to be strong. They need to be at the same level that their doula is that they're hiring. But, there's more chances of a backup being used if they take a very high number of births. I like to take between 3 or 4, but I'm not going to lie. Some months I do take 5 with very strong backups. I never want to miss a birth ever, but life happens. What do you bring in your birth bags? Like they say in a lot of like websites, like, oh, the laboring mom should bring this and that and that. And then you pack a lot of stuff and it's overwhelming. Well, if you hire a doula, chances are the doula is already going to bring half that stuff. Twinkly lights, candles, aromatherapy, we bring it. You just need to ask, though. So those are some of the questions. But
what about education? Like, do you provide education for the clients around birth, or it's like a basic knowledge? I know one doula just came with like a packet information. It's like, here you go, read this, and they kind of reviewed it with her a little bit. And So that was nice. Do most doulas do that, or can you ask them if they do?
I mean, we can only do so much in our visits, right? We're not there most of the time to supplement a full childbirth class. That's why they have you, and they can go and, into a class and meet other parents that are delivering at the same time frame. I personally recommend that I always take a childbirth class, but I say that I'm their cheat sheet. I supplement that information. Can I teach them a whole childbirth class? Absolutely. But that is going to be a separate package. And because that's going to take more than just 2 hours, right? I give them information, but a lot of it's given in person. But like any information, it goes in one ear and out the other because I've got a million things going on, and it's just a lot. So I prefer that they take a separate class. Now, there's doulas that do give packets, some give books, and I think it's amazing because the people can refer back to them. It just all depends on what the clients are looking for. Are they looking for all-in-one deal? That's one doula. Are they looking for just a supplementation, a cheat sheet? That's another doula. It's about really understanding what the client wants and needs. Now, I will say on that path, they need to, if they have a partner, they need to speak to that partner and make sure that they're both on the same page and that they both want the same thing. Because I've gone into interviews where the birthing person wants one thing and the partner wants another. That is a hot mess. We don't want that, right? We want them to be on the same page. Or if they want different things, you want to find a doula that can do both things, right? I always tell the partners that I support them just as much. Like, I'm their doula. I will not squeeze their hips, but I will teach them how to squeeze their partner's hips, and I will support them 100%. I will also make sure that they're taking care of themselves so they can take care of their partner. Some doulas don't focus on partners. Some doulas only focus on the mom. But I would say people in my community, they focus on everyone as a whole.
Yeah, it's a team effort, and I do see a lot in doulas and how they support the partner and how important that is. They're like a forgotten member sometimes, and they do get scared and feel a little helpless at the bedside as much as anyone.
And this is a whole other call, but I want to just acknowledge that postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety does exist in the partner community, okay? And it's very hush-hush and not talked about as much as it needs to. And I really think it's important that when they're going through this pregnancy with their partner and the delivery and after, that they are getting the support that they need. And sometimes they're getting support they didn't know they need. I see you, partners, and I see how you're struggling, and you want the very best for your person. And it's hard to have such little control in the labor room because it's really not something that you can predict. You can practice, you can prepare, you can educate, but birth is not linear. It's ups and downs and sides, and it just goes wherever, but you just have to be prepared for it and supported. And that's what your doula should do.
Partners need to come to the bedside as educated as they can, have an understanding of what the process is, like what's involved, how to support their partner, how they can support themselves, and how a doula can help them do that, and how their nurse is going to be, part of that team as well, and how to advocate, how to speak up, how to ask the right questions.
So I think it's, and I want to touch base on the nurse part, but before I want to say,
we'll do
there's
that.
a lot of partners and people birthing that are on the spectrum, and people don't recognize that. And it's tough because they've got certain needs that they're sometimes pushing aside to just be as supportive as possible. But it's really important that your doula understands all that needs to be taken into account when they're supporting. I've had a couple dads that have been on the spectrum, and they need different support and they need different ways of being, kind of told or explained what's going on. So it's important that, the doula truly can open their mind to all of that and really support them where they need to be supported. Now, on that note, when you have a doula, it's important to find a doula that works well with other medical staff, that will treat everyone that's treating the birthing person and the partner as a team, right? Because there are so many amazing nurses. I can't even tell you, you included. And there's a bad rap right now about, the nurses are overworked. Yes, they are overworked and they're underpaid and they're not valued as much as they need to be. But you got to go in and understand that, there is a way to communicate what you want with them. It's not going in hot and heavy and saying, this is what they want, screw you, blah, blah, blah. It's a way of dealing with everyone, handling the situation. And I think when you talk to a doula to interview, How do you work with staff? How do you work with the nurses? Because I can tell you right now, even, gosh, I won't say names, but there's a couple nurses that I swear to God should not be doing what they're doing anymore because they're burned out. But I kid you not, when I came in and I allowed them to see that I am a friend, not a foe, and I'm there to help them and work with them, their attitudes changed. Not a whole bunch because they're still pretty nasty, but they were better. And they treated my client with respect and care because they felt that they were cared for. This shouldn't be a battlefield. It really shouldn't. We all need to work together, always. Now, I'm not saying there's doulas and myself shouldn't advocate, but there's a way of doing it. Be nice.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely. It's about setting the tone of the teamwork and leadership. And as a laboring, mothers and laboring person, they are the leader, right? And it doesn't mean that they need to speak up and be loud during their birth. It's like almost the opposite. They need to set the team and set their birth plan and their partner and anyone in the room, including their doula, to be able to speak up for them. But at the end of the day, they need to set the tone. So if you notice the nurse is burned out, or she's not listening, or she's, kind of gaslighting or doing some toxic behavior, downplaying your pain or whatever it is, and then you need to be able to step up and with the training, when the training, like from me in the back end or at doula right there at the bedside, you need to be able to communicate by saying like, hey, like this birth is so important to me, and we've done a lot of preparation for this. It just feels like things are a bit off. Maybe you're having a bad day. I don't know what's happening, but I would love you to be part of this team and to work with me. But if you can't do that, and if we can't find a way to all speak respectfully and, to listen to each other, then maybe I need a new nurse. Are you able to be there for me? And like, I'm telling you right now, nurses did not come into this field because we hate it or we don't want to be the best at it. We pride ourselves in our care. But, we're human. And I bet you, I always say, I'm like, that nurse is going to go to the bathroom. She's going to text her boyfriend to stop texting her because she's at work and she needs to get her head in the game. And she's going to slap herself and go right back to your bedside. And I bet you she's going to be the best nurse you've ever seen. And she's going to get it together because she doesn't want to go to the nurse's station and be like, my patient doesn't want it. And maybe she will. Maybe she's just having too hard of a day. But call her out on it, So, but do it nicely.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean, I don't know if you're going to edit this out, and it's fine if you do and if you don't. I just want all your listeners to know, like, this is an amazing nurse because she's got a toddler. I think she's 5. How old is she?
She just turned 4.
She's 4. She's whining, sitting on her lap, wanting attention, and Colette is doing both right now. She's talking to me and trying to calm her child down. So if that ain't amazing nurse, mother / friend nurse, I mean, I don't even know what is. So
you have to put it on mute. I don't know what noises are coming, but
you can hear her. I mean, either sounds like an animal or a child.
Yeah, she started whining a little bit. She's funny.
But just know that, I mean, that's what a good nurse is. It's like she sees what's in front of her. She knows what needs to be done. She's able to multitask. She cares. Boom. But yeah. So, I mean, everyone has their bad days, but unfortunately, when you're having a baby, this is your one and only birth, right, for this baby. So it's okay, absolutely okay, if you don't feel comfortable saying what Colette just said, to go out and ask for a charge nurse or go out and ask someone like, hey, we really just want this experience to be our own and we're feeling uncomfortable. We don't like the energy. Could we have another nurse? I mean, that's really important that you stand your ground for that. And personally, that's what when I'm in my prenatals with my clients, I'm working with them on like, hey, if you don't like something, let's talk about it. Let's speak up. You need to be able to go out there and ask for another nurse. Don't ask your doula to do it. I will do it if needed, if I don't see anyone else supporting and, the partner is not there or he's burned out or something. And of course, I'm going to get involved. However, it's received better if it comes from the patients. And that's it. You get a new nurse, boom. That other nurse, I guarantee you she might be butthurt. I'm not going to lie, we're human. But she's going to move on to the next client and probably do her very best to take care of that person. So you got to do what's right for you. So we tend to look at doctors, nurses, attorneys, anyone with a higher position as godlike figures. And I think that is a serious problem. I mean, everyone deserves respect, right? Like everyone deserves the utmost respect and given a chance. But when you are in labor and you're in the hospital, it is absolutely okay to question things. Absolutely okay to say, you know what? I'm not comfortable with what you're saying to me. I would like someone else. It is absolutely okay to do that. You are so important. I'm talking to the birthing person right now, the mom. You are so important in this journey and you have to feel comfortable. And you had mentioned that, a lot of moms are people pleasers. Well, a lot of dads and partners are people pleasers too. And even doulas. I mean, man, we're in this industry because we're people pleasers. But, the partner, you guys need to really step up and say, you know what? Nope, this isn't working for me. At the end of the day, you're a patient and there's going to be more patients that are coming in, but you're never going to have another birth like this one. So this is the birth that you need to stick up for yourself, say what you want and make sure it's getting done. And when you hire a doula, they're going to support you on that journey. And they're also going to advocate for you. Like if I see that my, clients are not getting what they need and they're not being heard, you bet your ass I'm going to step in and say something. So, it's really important that I'm not saying take them down. I guess take them off that pedestal a little bit. I mean, respect, but they're human and not everything that they say is going to be right or feel good for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And doctors too. I saw that a patient fired her doctor in the middle of labor. She was like 8 centimeters and she fired him right there on the spot because of how she saw him, or no, it was a lady, female OB, how she spoke to one of the nurses. And she's like, no, we're not having that. And she's like, you need to leave my room and not come back. And you can do that even with your doctor.
And you know what? I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but that's not the best situation. Obviously, you want peace and calm throughout your labor and delivery, but God forbid your doctor does not make it or you have to fire your doctor. Guess what? Your nurse can deliver your baby. And guess what? They usually have other doctors there and staff. Most hospitals, and I'm speaking from California, so I cannot speak to the whole country, they have a doctor called a laborist that is always at the hospital for an emergency if the doctor doesn't make it, but they're also there if you send your doctor out the door. I have never, knock on wood, had that happen because I really work with my clients in advance to communicate so there are no surprises at the end. However, you have the right to not have that person treat you anymore. Unfortunately, I have heard in other states right now where you go to a hospital and you haven't done your due diligence and research and things like that. And if you want a VBAC and it's not a VBAC hospital, I did see the law get involved and they had a court hearing and that was completely awful. That's a whole other call. But so I guess what I'm saying here is be educated on your hospital, like know what they will and will not do. As much as I say you have the right to ask for someone else, and you do, sometimes you might be in a situation where you're going to have to fight more than really you should be at this point because you're delivering a baby.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
Do your research in the
hospital. Do your research. So that goes with the hospital. So if you have certain criteria, if you have certain like factors that play into if the hospital will be taking you or not. So whether it's, if you really, really, really want a vaginal, whether it's breech or not, well, are there any hospitals that deliver breech? What about the provider? You mentioned VBAC. What about diabetes? Are they big on inductions, C-sections? So these are things that you want to learn about before you go in and get that, relationship built with your provider so they have that understanding. And then in the end, if you decide it's not going to work out, is your hospital and a new laborist going to support that plan as well? So
they'll take care of you in the way that they think is best for sure. But if you go to a hospital where they don't do VBACs, and you can't safely leave, which I would highly suggest to try and leave if you can, if it's safe, then you are going to most likely come in front of a judge in your labor room and they are going to require you to have a C-section. It's the worst thing ever. I was just watching a video about it, but please make sure in advance, don't just assume, oh, if I don't want something, I'm just going to say no. Yes, for the majority of the things, absolutely. But there are some things that are going to be nasty and you don't deserve that. You're having a baby. It's a beautiful experience. It's not a time for a fight.
Right.
I started way off the general mark here. I apologize. That's a whole different call. But
No,
anyways,
it's part of it. It's part of building your team and having understanding. It's also part of building a really good birth plan that's going to work.
yeah,
It's not just writing down all these no's and expecting it to go that way. So many times that's what's done, and that's why it gets that reputation as like a ticket to the OR, or oh, where you're going to be sadly disappointed when you don't get any of these things because you just probably wrote them all down, and didn't communicate them, didn't do any real research behind it. Like, is the hospital going to respect this birth plan? You can find out before. And that's where working with me, working with a doula, working with your doctor and your midwife to create that birth plan together, to include your partner and whoever is going to be at that bedside in with that birth plan, so everyone knows and can advocate for you. Because I always say, if you have 5 people advocating and understanding the why behind your birth plan, and also understanding the ability to get it right, because you've already researched the hospital and you understand the policies, then that 6th person that comes in that doesn't know you, it's a laborist that's never met you before, they're going to have to fall in line real quick when they see 5 other people that are supporting you and able to communicate for you, because they understand your why so well. So,
yeah.
but it does start with you.
It does, and it definitely, and I love what you said. Don't just write things down in your birth plan. Like, do the research with your doula, with your team on the pros and cons of what you're just writing down. Like, so many people, and this is a pet peeve of mine, they go to social media and they see someone's story, and it's their story. Their story. It's not your story. It's not going to be the next person's story. Everyone is different. I had somebody a long, long time ago, God bless them, and they'd be okay with me saying this because we talked about it. But they put down on their birth plan. I go in and I help them write one, and I go back and edit and then send it to them. But they had down on their birth plan that they were okay with an episiotomy if they pushed for over an hour. Sorry, what? They did not understand episiotomies are not evidence-based. They did not understand that it's under 1% that would ever be needed. They just went with, I'll give them an hour, and if not, it's okay. You just handed it. That's just, no, that is not evidence-based. It's not right information. And I explained what episiotomies do and, the benefits of not having one. And they're like, oh my God, I'm glad you read this because I'm taking it off. That stuff like that, like, she thought she was being kind by saying only an hour. I'm like, only average first-time mom pushes average of 3 to 4 hours. And that's with no issues. If you push your baby out sooner, amen, give yourself some time. And also, like, I would never just agree to episiotomy. Make it make sense.
And it's like, did she talk to, is this a conversation she had with her doctor?
Not yet, thank God.
But it should be like, before
yes,
we put on
you're in the planning stages of the
okay, good. But
yeah, no.
But before you even put something like that on your birth plan, it should have, like, I would say, speak with your provider about that. Like, when would you consider it appropriate to, like, perform an episiotomy? And see what they say. What is the policy? What protocols do you have in place around episiotomies? What is your percentage of vaginal deliveries that you have performed an episiotomy? Like, those are a few questions that you could ask to get there. I want to put something about episiotomy on my birth plan. What would you suggest, right? What would you think of if I put after an hour? See what they say as well, right?
Yeah. But I would also say that, like, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like that should be something that's discussed when they're interviewing doctors, because, like, that's a red flag.
Exactly. I would ask.
So, like, I would say, like, in the beginning when you're interviewing doctors, write up like a little birth plan that you think you would want and ask the questions surrounding what you think you would want or you would not want. That's going to help you make a decision, because I had a doctor once and I had no idea. I could not get any information on this doctor. I don't know why. I don't know if he transferred or something, but we did not know going in. We had put no episiotomies or vacuum unless medically necessary. And I explained the reasons why you would want to use a vacuum and reasons why you would not. I never tell them my opinions on anything because I don't really have strong opinions. It's what they need or what, and what they're comfortable with. But with episiotomies, I found out from the nurse, an amazing local nurse, came in and said, hey, heads up, he's got a 25% episiotomy rate. My mouth dropped. My client was like, what? I'm like, okay, we are absolutely saying no to episiotomy unless absolutely medically necessary. And she's like, well, what's absolutely medically necessary? I'm like, chances are you're never going to see that medical need, but yeah, like crazy. So if she had known that when she was interviewing these doctors, and I was hired very late on, then she wouldn't have hired that doctor.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot to it. And I don't want to see people that are, finally going through their birth plan with the doctor. And it's usually around 34, 36 weeks, or maybe sooner, finding out that they need to switch, because that is not the greatest time to switch. Can you? Absolutely. Are you going to be paying some money? Chances are yes. The doctors are now, especially in the state of California, are charging us an admin fee if you switch late. So, ask those questions early on.
Yeah, exactly. I actually have a questions and I think it's about 33 questions you could ask your OB. And
I love it.
Yeah, so I just give it to them right at the start, so you can start running them down. And I always say, go ask a few questions to get the vibe of how they're answering in person. And then you feel free to say, hey, I have a list of questions. I can go ahead and email you, and then they can answer them on their free time. And if they give you a hard time about that, then that's a red flag right there.
Next. Yeah. Next. Yeah, for sure.
So lastly, I want to just touch on the other people in the room. We spoke a little bit about a nurse. You can't really choose your nurse, but we spoke about what to do if, you're getting bad vibe from her. But what about the family members, right? So what is your take on if someone is like, I don't know if I want my mom in the room or not, or my dad, or his mom wants to be in it, but then there's we don't really get along, but I want, he really wants her there. And it can be a family dilemma, or your best friend, or how would you approach that when it comes to your birth space and protecting it, but then also appeasing some of the people that want to be involved? Who should be part of that bedside team?
Well, first I'm going to ask them to close their eyes and imagine their ideal birth. Are those people in the room? Nope. Then chances are you don't want them in there. However, if they're on the fence, or if they do want them in there, but they're worried, I say that, I'm a big proponent on no surprises, do what you need to do so you avoid any kind of surprise. So you have a very, very in-depth conversation with the people that you want in the room, and let them know, look, this isn't going to be fun and games. This is serious. I'm going to be focused on me. It can't be this or that, or, whatever. And let them decide if they want to stay in that room or not. Now, honestly, and I'm not trying to come off as a jerk, but if your partner wants someone in there and you as the birthing person doesn't get along with them, that's a big no for me. We are mammals. So if you think of cats and dogs and just animals, where do they give birth? In a dark, quiet place. Where do they stress out and not give birth in a good, timely manner? When people are watching, when they're uncomfortable, when they feel scared. So if you don't feel comfortable with someone in the room, why did you hire a doula and a doctor that you feel comfortable with? Because it doesn't matter. You have someone in the room that's going to make you feel uncomfortable. That just ruined it all. So, it is, at the end of the day, you are delivering this child, so you have to make the decision. Now, also, I would also just tell them, look, there's a chance I might kick you out. Or I don't want you in the room, but stay close by because there's a chance I might want you to come in. I work very well with grandparents and whoever wants to be in the room because I become their doula too. I don't take away my focus on the clients, but I do help because if that's what they want, I'm going to make sure everyone is comfortable so they can be the best support people for the client. But, I've been very lucky with the people in the room. They've been supportive. Now, I had a birth a month ago where everyone was sitting on the couch just watching the mom birth. And I could tell there was a shift in her demeanor. So I said kindly, very kindly, could you guys step behind the curtain? And I, of course, asked the client that first, hey, would you prefer them behind the curtain? And she's like, yes, please. They went behind the curtain. One's eyes rolled, but the other one was like, yes, it's important. They went behind the curtain. She had her baby. I grabbed them as soon as she was comfortable. They came out and everyone was great. But that's what was needed, It's very hard to say yes or no. It's not a black and white question. It's up to the clients, and whatever I do is I support whatever they decide. I've seen both sides of it.
Yeah, that's all you can do. Maybe have a little code word so that I like the code words. Yeah, a look.
There is one doctor, though, that I will not work with anymore. I can't. He sat on the couch and watched my client labor unmedicated, and that really bothered me. really bothered me because he wasn't being supportive. He was just sitting
Like, what are
watching.
you doing here? Just go and
Yeah,
go with
like,
the nurse's station. You.
I don't like that. Like, just like after and postpartum care, like be helpful. Don't just sit there, expect to hold the baby. Don't just sit there and watch what's going on. Get up, take the trash out, sweep the kitchen, make a meal, do the laundry, brush the mom's hair out. Like, don't just sit there.
Yeah.
So it's harder to do that in the birthing room, but like just sitting there and acting like this is a movie and you're eating popcorn, I don't think is the best way of doing it.
And that being said, same with your mom or your dad or your sister, whoever's
That's what I'm
sitting there.
thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always say give them a role, give them a duty, a job.
The flexibility and understanding when the medical team or the doula is doing something, there's a reason, and to understand what can happen and what should happen so they're prepared. But also give them a task. And it's not, taking pictures and sending them to the aunt and uncle, during the whole birth. Like, know your place, be respectful, and step in when needed.
Maybe the
Don't
role
assume.
is photographer,
But yeah, I was with an unmedicated client and she was laboring like a badass and like standing up. And it was her second. And then she looked at me and the partner, and the nurse wasn't in the room, who I absolutely adore this nurse. I wish I got her name. She's like, I feel burning. And you know what burning means to you. And I were like, oh, and I'm like, I went down to see if the baby's head was crowning. And then the nurse came in right then, or I would have had to, have the dad push the button and I would have caught a baby. But the nurse came flying in. It was like a scene from like that old movie Flashdance where she like got on the floor and caught the baby. And then fluid just like flew all over her. It was like a moment. But like if I hadn't known, when she said burning, what burning meant, chances are, and if I wasn't there, that baby would be on the floor.
Oh my God. I've seen babies
say something.
Babies in the toilet. I've seen babies coming out. When they want to fly out, they'll fly out. So
when there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. So good. So I think we touched on a lot of the birth team and how to set up the roles and how to make sure you have the team around you, because it's just so important to protect that space around you during your birth, and to create the birth that you really want really does take some work, and it's all preparation so that when the day comes, you can kind of just, sit back and focus on the baby and your body, and that's it.
Yeah. If you don't prepare, I mean, I'm telling you now, you can't go into a hospital and just close your eyes and expect everything is going to go your way when you haven't prepared and explained what you want to people. It's just not going to happen. It will not happen. If it does, you got very, very lucky, but chances are it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So do your research, prepare, hire a doula, hire my friend's a nurse, do everything that you need to do so you feel confident and ready to have this beautiful experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Where can we find you, Jill? I'll have in the show notes, but tell us where we can find you.
I have a website. It's called jillmagoffin.com. I'm so creative with my name. It's just my name, jillmagoffin.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Just look for me. I'm in Los Angeles, but I do support Ventura County. So I'm around. Hey, and if you guys have questions, and this is just to people listening, like, don't hesitate to ask a doula just for like general information. Like, obviously, if you ask more than one question or something like that, pay them for their time or hire them. But it's okay to ask questions. Don't assume anything. We love answering questions. We love being supportive.
And we love doing this. Look, we're talking for an hour because we absolutely love this topic.
Has it been an hour? Oh my God.
Yes, girl. And we could probably keep talking because this is just what we love to do. So thank you, Jill. We'll find her on Instagram, get her books. The links will be in the show notes, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Amazing. I hope you really enjoyed this chat with Jill Magoffin. I know I did, and I will definitely be having her back because we have more questions. We have more to chat about, and I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, jillmagoffin.com, or find her on Instagram. And Facebook, Kaya, you can't find her anywhere, so don't even try. She's probably on my stories here and there. I had to edit a whole chunk out because she got really whiny and loud. She was pretending to be a dog, and her little puppy sounds. Oh my gosh. You guys have toddlers? Do you know what I'm talking about? But yeah, I apologize to Jill for that, and that won't happen again. But it is what it is. That happens, and I'm just obsessed with her. So what can I do? I'm trying to gentle parent, but I'm also like, stop it. Be quiet. Well, anyways, join me next week. We'll get into more of the second stage of labor, and we'll discuss finally the forceps and vacuum. I will see you next time. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy New Year, all of that. And catch me on Instagram, my stories, because I'm in India. Thank you for listening to My Friends a Nurse presents the Birthling Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it valuable. Before we go, a quick reminder. The information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider for any medical concerns or questions. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more people and continue to bring you great content. Until next time, stay healthy and stay informed.